All right, good evening. This is Levi Alexander presenting a special training on understanding cryptocurrencies and the Howey test, especially the different parts of cryptocurrency that is being debated by two top eight federal agencies, the CFTC and SEC. Some people are left in between confused. My hope is during that presentation we will be able to clarify some of the key points of this topic so that way when you come across that term you will know what it is. It matters because it touches on the core component of how to relate to cryptocurrencies in terms of the financial market. In financial markets, we use financial instruments to exchange values among the users or participants. And the whole idea is to generate capital. And that capital is used to grow the economy. The hope is that all participants abide by the rules and play fairly. To do that, the United States and all of the developed countries around the world create government agencies to police financial markets, to maintain order, and to facilitate capital formation in an orderly manner. In this presentation, I'd like to touch on a very specific area of the law called the Howey test, which is the part where the government is trying to define which cryptocurrency fit into the box of an investment contract. And if they succeed at fitting that such cryptocurrency into that investment contract box, the expectation is that this will make it now easy for them to label such cryptocurrency as a security. When they do that, SEC can now come in with all the rules and regulations to oversee everything that's happening within the sphere of action that involve that cryptocurrencies, including registration of securities, along with putting in place the right practice to ensure that investors are protected. So it's kind of like a two-step process. The first is to define crypto as a security to the Howey test, and the second is now to allow SEC to have green light to come and kind of police this cryptocurrency. Because there has been so many cryptocurrencies, that's over 20,000 of them that exist today, it's generally difficult to really review all 20,000 effectively. Therefore, the government and everybody else try to categorize them into kind of cryptocurrencies. And this way, it makes it kind of less tedious to go in as opposed to going over 20,000 different cryptocurrencies to evaluate them to see whether they are securities or not. The key point to remember is that if it is a security, then it is under the purview of SEC. Therefore, it must abide by rules for registrations, disclosures, compliance, and the rest, all the rest in the list. There are two agencies that are involved with that task of regulating cryptocurrencies until Congress provide a clear pathway. It's the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Usually it is referred to as the SEC for short. Then there is the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and that's also referred to as a CFTC for short name. The first one deal with securities, that is investment contract, and the second one is deal with commodities, which is a unique form of financial instrument that is independent from the actions of orders, or that is uh, independent from a centralized common enterprise involvement. Then the main crypto that has been some sort of guide in helping in creating some kind of baseline is Bitcoin, because Bitcoin has a first it's the first crypto, and it's the biggest one by far. And then second, it's because it has some uniqueness to it that makes it interesting in terms of the Howey test. Let's see how it fares and what's going on. Let's define a couple of these entities and also cryptocurrency quickly before we get into it. CFTC again is Commodity Futures Trading Commission. This is an entity that has been around for some time now, over 40 years, more or less, close to 50 years. But it's been around under different names for over 100 years. It's taken so many different names to control commodities. In fact, commodities have started to trade around mid of 19th century, 1860s, 1850 in Chicago. But CFTC had to go through a series of mutations and changes in government to finally call it a CFTC. So commodities is a unique financial instrument, as I've said. It's because it is not something that is under the control of a business or an enterprise that provides any type of efforts to increase its value. It derives its value solely by the nature of what it is, not what someone else does. For example, rice or beans, they are rice. No matter who makes it, it doesn't make a big difference. What makes the difference is that whether it's rice or beans, or whether it's a grade, a grade A, B, or C. So CFTC is the agency that provides oversight for commodities all over the US to ensure that all commodities follow the rules. Then there is the SEC. SEC is the Securities Exchange Commission. It's also a federal agency, but it's also independent. It's independent, such as working on its own budget and its own rules and regulations. And the same thing applies to CFTC, by the way. So SEC is the Security Exchange Commission, oversees another area of financial instruments in the financial market that is referred to as the investment contract. Investment contract is when there is somebody who invests capital in something, and they generally speaking, they expect a return from that investment, and that contract involves generally a common enterprise, and that enterprise will do XYZ activity to help raise capital or raise a profit and to increase the value of this investment, so that investor can expect hopefully a return on their investment, his or her investment. That's what securities, generally speaking, could be defined as. SEC is the agency that oversees all different entities and parties that are involved in investment contracts to enforce rules set by Congress to protect investors and to participate in capital formation in the financial market. In the middle of all of that, around just 2009, that's about 14 years ago, Satoshi created BTC, and BTC is a form of digital currency that allows people to use a technology called the blockchain to transfer um, values. So that's called cryptocurrency. So in that way, there will be a, a key pair, meaning the technology is more like an encryption, as the name is, cryptocryption. Encryption is following a certain uh, mathematic function that provides a key that secure the information. So once that information becomes secure, then they can transfer that information into the blockchain, and they become part of blocks that are created by miners, or sometimes it's proof of stakes. So but if it's a miner involved, then they have to use a certain process by solving a math function to create new blocks, and those new blocks put together different information inside of that transfer. So that information, whatever it is, says how much I have transferred to you. It's really basically a message, like a mail, and then it's protected by a key, and that key is only um, it can only be opened by the owner of the key, and that is a, a pair of key, one that is private and one that is public. Generally speaking, that's how you can define it. Then there are two main uh, cryptos that you can refer to whenever you speak the crypto language. It is Ethereum and BTC. BTC is the king of crypto, and Ethereum is the second largest cryptocurrency around the world. Each of them have over $100 billion of value. Sometimes it varies, and it varies um, very often because of volatility in the market. Now, because crypto has grown over the past 10 years so rapidly, it has attracted the attention of the government because within 14 years, the industry has grown from nothing to over $1 trillion on average. That's a lot of money that is involved in this market, and that's money that's coming from mom and pop, regular Joe, that are working hard, and the government needs to protect. So the government also has their own politic agenda when it comes to managing the economy and putting so much money, so much capital from the economy into this industry or this market. It must be certainly a type of agreement where the government understand clearly how this thing is influencing the economy one way or the other, and how to regulate it to make sure that people are protected. Of course, the government have done some excess of action in some level at some point, but generally speaking, it's been pretty much that battle to kind of rein in cryptocurrency or put it under some sort of control or order. Until that happens, what you see is anybody who has a great idea, they can code, or they can find someone else who can code, and they have the funding to do that. Then they create either a cryptocurrency or a crypto exchange. And next thing you know, this person becomes more like a casino house or like a digital bank, literally, or like a new money, new currency. And then they just place those on the exchange, and next thing you know, a cryptocurrency exists. It's so easy that anyone with any bad intent can also join the group and do things that are harmful to others. And we've seen this quite a lot over the past, at least over the past 12 months and more. Then CFTC, SEC, which are the two agencies that are placed to control financial markets generally, they took notice and they are interested to find out exactly how to deal with that. That's what's going on. Now, let's talk about securities and commodities quickly. Generally speaking, when you say securities, you see two things. The first is an equity contract, and the second one is a debt contract. Equity contract is where I'm going to have ownership into something that you have as an investment opportunity, and I'm going to have an ownership to that, and that ownership is referred to as equity. Generally, you have a share and you sell it. You sell those shares, and those shares give me in return a percentage of ownership into your project. And once that project takes off and I make money, then that's called return on investment. And that investment contract exists by nature of just having this kind of arrangement of expectation in making money from your action. So it's kind of slightly more sophisticated than this, and I'll explain it in an easier way. But that's that. The second one is a debt contract. The debt contract is a contract where I lend money to you instead of equity where I have ownership into your project. I do not have ownership in your debt, but I have a contract that states you owe me XYZ amount of money, which will be returned to me on that specific day plus interest, and that interest is my profit. So there is no ownership. I don't care whether a project makes money or not. That doesn't concern me. What concerns me is simply, do you have my money? And you pay me that money with interest, and there's no problem. So that's a debt contract. So once there is a business that's involved, or an enterprise, or a third party, and there is some kind of action that's expected to make money, it becomes a securities. Usually you won't have a securities if you just lend money to a friends or family, right? It's not the same. There are a list of 4 things you like to see to understand there's an investment contract, whether it's an equity or debt, and I'll go over that as well in a minute. As opposed to securities, commodities is not really an investment contract between two parties, but it's more like the trading of financial instruments called commodities. The purest form to understand commodities is to think of it as core commodities, whereas to regulate the the cyclical shortfall or shortage or inefficiency in agriculture, a group of producers have come together and they have created an association. They have created an entity that allowed them to facilitate exchange around the clock more efficiently. And as they did that, they created more standardized contracts. So by standardizing this contract, by making them more of a universal form of contract that is trading agricultural or resources, these things became something they call commodities, more like something that makes it more convenient, if you can call it that. You could call them conveniences. So it is the trading of products that do not necessarily need to be managed by a company, but it is just the product that two people are involved with. One is buying and one is selling, literally. And that product needs to be a commodity for that to involve these laws. And commodities are divided into two types. You have the soft and the hard. The soft are things that are grown in land, in dirt. Um, and then you have the hard one, like soft one, like rice, beans, and so on and so forth. Then you have the hard ones. These are more like natural resources, like oil, metals, and so on and so forth. But as commodities evolve into more opportunities, there has been other standardized contracts that were created to deal with complexity of hedging, meaning of protecting and managing risk. To do that, people have started to work on contracts that are called futures contract, derivatives, and then forex, which is the exchange of currencies. And these things were added over time under the commodities suite. I'm talking about forex, futures, and derivatives, in most cases, but because there are securities that are also futures. And then the BTC case is being debated, but there's no law yet for it that it is a commodity. So we'll go over that in a minute. The Howey test, what is it? Okay. After the Great Depression in the US, the government came up with a series of laws to protect investment. If you guys recall, during the Great Depression, there was a bank run, and that bank run drove the economy of the United States to the ground. And a lot of banks were issuing notes that they couldn't secure because there was no funds to secure these notes, and they couldn't keep up. So the government started in 1933 with the Securities Act, which defines what is an investment contract. And then in 1934, the government uh, came up with another law that's called the Securities Exchange Act, which control how this contract is exchanged among different parties. Now, because investment contract is so complex, there are four simple ways you can think of it. It's an investment of money, meaning the first requirement, there must be an investment. There must be somebody investing capital. It doesn't have to be actual currency. It could be something of value, and then it's called capital. So generally speaking, it's investment of money. The second thing is you are investing in a common enterprise, meaning a business, and you're giving money to the business, not a person, but a business. The third thing is you are expecting to see a profit. And remember, the profit can come in two ways. The first way is to the first way is as an equity where you have ownership, and if the company makes money, you make money, but if the company lose money, you lose money. Or as a debt, which means if whether the company makes money or not, you expect to get your interest, and your interest on the loan is your profit. You expect a profit. And number four, you are under certain agreement that this profit will derive from the efforts of others, meaning there will be other people that will be doing XYZ that will help you make a profit, meaning they have a certain business, they are doing promotions, they are developing certain products or technologies, whatever they do to as efforts to um, grow their bottom line. These are the things you expect to happen for you to make money. So there's that expectation. There are some people who are making some efforts, and those efforts conclude the last requirement to define something as an investment contract. Now, the Howey story is 3 years after the Securities Act was published, meaning in 1936, a company sold citrus tracts to residents of Florida. And as they sold these tracts, what they did is they leased those tracts back from these people. So they had land, they sold it to the new owners, and then when they were done, they bought it back. They leased it back from the people, meaning they paid them to listen. Okay. Now, as they leased the land or the tract, They use the land to make a profit, and they took care of the land to grow citrus, and they cater to all the different agricultural needs. Whereas the owner of the land had no experience in agriculture, therefore it was the company's effort to take care of what was needed to make money. And of course, the company grew the citrus and make money. And they shared the money with the owner of the land. In addition to the lease, they also shared a profit with the owner of the land. The SEC intervened and stated this is a security contract and it should have been registered. They went to court, and that went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in the end, the Supreme Court agreed with the SEC that it was an investment contract because there was some kind of dramatic event, whereas at different court level, there have been judges that have been contradicting the order, but it was finally settled at the Supreme Court level where they sided with Howey, with SEC. Howey was the company, right? And Howey company sold those tracks to the people, and SEC intervened to enforce the law by requiring the contract to be registered. Now, for the Howey test to happen, you want to see four conditions. The first one is there must be an existence of an investment contract. The second is there must be the formation of a common enterprise. The third requirement is a promise of profits by the issuer meaning the company that is issuing the opportunity, that is presenting the opportunity. And number four is the use of a third party to promote the offering. In other words, you would have an investment contract, meaning two parties are there. And remember, investment means you are placing or contributing capital into a project. That's what investment is in this case. And that capital that you contribute is considered as investment. And there is a company that is a common enterprise that exists. And the third is a promise of profits by the issuer, meaning the company. Then the fourth is the use of a third party to promote the offering, meaning there must be some sort of efforts of others to ensure that this is done properly and promoted the right way. Generally speaking, that's what the Howey test is. Now, how does BTC fare in terms of the Howey test? There must be an investment contract. Remember, that means I'm investing capital in an enterprise. In this case, there is no such enterprise. There is no enterprise called BTC company. You buy BTC from anybody, not from a company. Because of that reason, BTC couldn't pass the Howey test that way because it does not have an investment contract in existence. The second thing is the formation of a common enterprise. BTC has never created a business where they received or let alone receive money from anybody. There has never been a case where BTC raised capital from a third party for the business. So because of these reasons, it's pretty obvious that there is no company involved. So BTC just was created by somebody everybody called Satoshi Nakamoto, but nobody have seen these guys and nobody know where he is. But there's no company beside that is involved. So that's why BTC couldn't pass the second test. The third maybe. I'll tell you why. It's because when you buy a BTC, there is an expectation that it could grow, and if it grows in values, you'll make a profit. The only problem is the person who is selling it to you is not the person who created that BTC. Therefore, it makes it again kind of gray to define it as a promise. And the fourth one is there will be efforts by others who are involved to ensure that this contract is uh, is growing in value. Yes, BTC makes certain efforts that contribute in the value going up or expected to contribute in the increase of value. For example, um, they have protocols in place to allow miners to get paid to mine these things, and those mining can improve the quality, the overall quality of the experience in that way. And there was also every 4 years they cut the 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 reward by half, making it more cutting the supplies, making it more scarce. By creating that scarcity, this have been proven over the 14 years to increase the value of BTC largely. That alone is an act, but that act is done by other people, which would qualify it as an Howey test. Then in that case, people could argue that BTC is a security, but because of the first and the second requirement, BTC could not qualify for the Howey test. Bear in mind, this is not the same case for other projects. Okay, for example, Ethereum is quite independent by nature, meaning anybody can buy Ethereum anywhere really. But there is a controlling party that is involved, that's an enterprise. And also there may be an argument in Ethereum that there is no investment contract, nobody really invested in the company. But again, that's an argument that can be made and that can be gray in that could be placed in the gray area as well, because once you give capital into a project, it's sort of an expectation of investment. So yeah, but the the problem is, where did you pay and did you pay? In the case of ETH, you basically buy ETH from a third party, not a company. So it's more like a sale than an investment. Therefore, Ethereum could be hard to place Ethereum as a securities as well. However, there are other companies that are more centralized. We're talking about investment contract, for example, the placement for a longer time where you lock your holding. For example, when you do staking, when you stake your Ethereum for 12 months, and once you stake it, you put it somewhere. That's Ethereum again. That's now Ethereum on a different way of looking at it. I'm talking about staking. When you stake your Ethereum in order to provide proof of stake on the network, which is the way the protocol that runs the network, and then you expect some sort of rewards, that's an investment because you invest capital. Your Ethereum is capital. Then you expect there is a common enterprise, meaning you're not placing it in the street really. You're placing it with companies, and that in that way you are investing in a company, and then you expect after your stake, after they give you your Ethereum back, then you would make a profit. That promise of profit, check the box for the Howey test. And if you use other party to promote it, or you have efforts from other people, for instance, where you have Ethereum using the proof of stake to ensure that whatever you've done is broadcast in a way. It's not really the promotion of the offering, but more like action of others in that case. Um, that allows Ethereum to now use your stake to generate more verification to verify other transactions. Those action makes your staking valuable. That's by definition the action of other people, and that increase the value of the network, and thereby also could increase your value. The fourth one is kind of murky. It's not black and white. So both BTC and Ethereum needs a lot more work for the government to really sort it out. But the clear test for BTC is has definitely failed to be placed as a security. The next question is, since it cannot be a security, could it be a commodity? And then the next thing is, for the other ones, that could be a securities. Can they be both a securities in some way and a commodities in some other ways? Those are the considerations that are being made. We'll see. But the real challenge is there is no law right now that settle these areas of confusion. Therefore, it's being left to the CFTC and SEC to set the tone and call out different instances that they believe could be a security or not, or commodities or not. As we look into this whole story, we must recognize that where people have complained, the government has overstepped their boundaries on many cases by going too hard on uh, a new crypto industry um, that is trying to fight its footings instead of helping this industry growing into a bigger space. The government is crippling it, or the government is working to destroy it. They're talking about so many action that have been taken by SEC and CFTC. While it's tempting to look at it that way, because hey, the government has really come hard for the past 12 months in reality, but you also need to consider the fact that the crypto industry itself is not like innocent. They are not poor little victims or angels. They also have issues in the crypto market that also must be addressed. The first one is dark money. We've seen a lot of reports recently where um, criminal crime organization and individual criminals and sanction governments and also hackers have used crypto to steal and launder funds. When you have those kind of dark money that are flowing into a system and it becomes kind of like so pervasive, then you might wonder, where does it stop and who controls what? And that's a question that needs a little more sensitiveness to address, because even the banking system in some extent is not immune to dark money, but how much of it is easily um, accessible through crypto, especially decentralized exchange, where you are not required to create any identity, even if they limit you at a certain amount. If you don't create an identity, nothing is stopping you from creating 1,000 accounts and then break your illegal proceed into smaller parts and then still transfer them and then what have you. That's the challenge, and it's a serious challenge. Whereas it makes both people who are victims and also government nervous. The second issue is abusive practice by the exchange. I have seen it firsthand myself, where usually when you go to an exchange in many cases, exchange might want to be both the judge, the jurors, and also at the end they want to be the executioners. That's more like where you have an entity that exists outside of a set of rules and guidelines. There is also reports we've seen where exchanges have gone out of business because the money is gone. We can talk about the FTX case and the Luna case. Those are both major fraud cases where exchanges, not exactly exchanges, one is an exchange, the other one is a cryptocurrency, and they illustrate the sensitiveness of um, of the abusive practice. The third thing is something called high yield investment program. This is a program where they promise you a high return every day or every week. Meanwhile, in many cases, this money is coming from really your money to pay you back, meaning you or other investors that come after you pay you instead of a profit. And this is more like a pyramid kind of scam. And when that happens, it implodes pretty quickly, and a lot of people, the last people who join, lose their money. The way this work is on the promise that you will get a lot of money, and people have financial problems, so they need help. When you promise them that, they try to invest, and there's a lot of these programs these days that are popping up. Every week you have a couple that are being promoted, especially on YouTube and other places on social media, and they are being promoted by regular folks like us who knows us and speaks our language. So we tend to believe what they are saying because it's so and so. It's someone you probably grew up with sometimes, and that creates a comfort level. And then you put your money, and next thing you know, the funds implode. And there's also other security issues. For example, the issue of hacking. That's a serious problem. Whereas you might have your money today and you don't see what happens to it tomorrow. The next problem is privacy. Nobody knows anymore or how much of privacy crypto provides, although it promises a lot of privacy. Quite frankly, it's a lot of promise. Actually, anonymity is one of the chief benefits promoted by crypto owners, meaning you will be anonymous. But how anonymous are you? Because the blockchain keeps all the information. That's a first problem. The second problem is the exchanges have been told to cooperate with government agencies around the world by providing them informations about your transactions and life, something that normally they would have required court orders to do in order to protect your privacy. But with crypto industry, the government just come in and get all kind of private information about people in the course of their investigation or an interest. Sometimes it's just an interest they have, and next thing you know, they get all the information they would have needed a court order to do in the first place. I don't know if anybody is comfortable with this. I am not. I believe this is abusive. This is next level privacy breach. But then again, nobody is saying anything about it because it's kind of like the unspoken truth about crypto. So as much as we love the technology, that's an issue that's a nerve, quite frankly. And if you care about privacy, you might want to know. We might want to ask yourself, do you really know what happens to your information when you after you provide it to the exchange, and where does it go? First and foremost, where is that exchange? A lot of time we don't even know where the exchange is. If we do, we don't even know who is there if we went there. But we give them our information, and what do they use it for, and how do they keep that information? And if they are breached and somebody took all your private information and it goes into the dark web, how would you know? Because normally if a bank or regular company is breached, there's an announcement, there are requirements by law where they have to disclose this to you. At least you know what to do. But in the crypto market, you won't even know who is doing what and what happened. Yeah. So there's this issue of privacy. And the last is obscure accounting. Um, Accounting is the way to make sure whatever we say is what really it is, right? So if we say we made $100, accounting will help us count that and then confirm that it's really $100, right? And if we give an exchange $1,000, we want to make sure that if we give them $1,000 to hold for us, and they say they are holding that $1,000, that they're really holding that $1,000, and when we need it, it's there. And that accounting makes all participants comfortable or safe, feel safe. That's the whole idea about accounting. The problem with crypto these days is that there is no disclosure in terms of accounting where people know exactly what they are doing with your money. There is something called proof of reserve. The proof of reserve is supposedly a balance sheet type of report that shows on that specific day we have $1 billion in holding, let's say in BTC or Ethereum, and then we also have certain amount of cash, and the total is $1 billion, right? And then our clients have given us $1 billion. So we do have $1 billion. We just have some BTC, we also have some Ethereum, and we have a lot of cash. Okay, that's awesome because at least we know somewhere there's $1 billion in your proof of reserve. The only problem with that statement is that it's only good for the day it's published. We don't know what happened to the time after you publish it, number one. Number two, we don't know enough information about who has claim on these asset that you've listed on your report. What I mean by that is this. When you look into your balance sheet, there will be a part that's called asset, right? And in those areas, you will be able to see um, parts where we actually owe what money we have. Let's say we have such amount of cash. It's listed in the asset, but a lot of time that cash is not really a net equity. A lot of time that cash is a loan that you took yesterday and you put in the bank and you have the money, but it's not yours. You borrowed it, but it will still be listed as asset. And that's a problem because when those exchange provide a certain amount of reserve, we don't know how much of it they borrowed. We don't know how much of the asset they have a lien on. You know, when you buy a car, a house, there was a title, and that title you can research it on your own to see if there's a lien, and that lien is a mortgage or a loan. And that lien, if you were to sell that car, you have to pay that back first, and it is recorded on the lien. The problem with this, and if you have a business, there's an UCC lien, and the UCC lien provides you a record, a public record that shows even if the company has such amount of money, they also have such amount of debt. And if you want to buy this business, you have to pay those debts, right? And sometimes the debt might be even higher than the money that the company holds in their bank account. Therefore, the company is bankrupt, even if they have money, but they have more debt than money, right? And when they have more obligation than their performance and money, then they have to seek protection to continue to operate under some kind of restructuring. We don't know when an exchange provide a proof of reserve whether that asset or BTC or whatever they list does not have a lien on it, claim. We don't know whether they have received any other money they haven't shown to the accountant who prepared the form because there is no real way for an accountant who is doing an audit to know secret bank accounts that you've opened as well. So there's no process unless you fully disclose everything. You could fool your auditor. So nobody knows whether they have loans or secret debts or private arrangement that they signed that's not listed anywhere. And then we have no idea. So we have to take their word for it that they have a reserve. The other issue is this. Even when we would believe them, there is no real method yet as far as the accounting of crypto, how to classify that asset when you prepare a contract in a way that's so simple to do. Because you have different type of crypto and they could be classified in different place of an accounting equation. For those reasons and more, it's still something that's going to take some time to work out, but it would have been very helpful that the exchange start practicing more open accounting practice, more open accounting. That would have made the public more confident in their ability to deliver on what they promise. Okay. The challenge is for the government now. We've covered the challenges for the cryptos. Now for the government, the first issue is Congress has not provided a new law to regulate crypto yet. It's still going through some political channels. There have been some propositions, but there's no law yet. And because of that reason, it's kind of like hard for the government to really know what to do precisely on each case. So they have to kind of do the Howey test and also go to court. They have been in court for a while now, trying to get the judge to decide because there's no um, work frame yet. And that is causing a lot of frictions and time in courts that could have been spent elsewhere. Because remember, for the government to go to court, whether it's the government or private parties that they're taking to court, they have to prepare and they have to extend a certain amount of their resources to prosecute these cases in court. And in those claims, they have to do investigation, discoveries, file claims, filings, do other filings, argument, research. It's a whole work, and each of those cases will require full attention of a team of lawyers or experts that will have to come together, join their resources to focus on these cases. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the court, but how feasible it is when you have to now spend a large amount of your resources in court instead of working on the administration of the agency itself. I'm talking about the Cftc and SEC. That's a question that this agency will have to address, but it 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 makes you wonder whether the taxpayers' money is being used in the best possible way when all of it is spent on litigations, or most of it, a big chunk of it is being spent on litigation simply because there is no law work frame yet, which would have basically cleared the area for everybody. The second challenge is alienation. That comes from the first one and also for other reasons. When the government is seen as a bully, as someone who's just coming at people and trying to destroy whatever we have instead of building, that also creates a precedent that's not good for anybody, for everybody. It could alienate the government for other larger integrations or capital formation activities. For instance, one of the mandate of the government, believe it or not, is not to take people to court, but to participate in capital formation in the market. It means everybody is happy and they put their capital. Because if you're not happy with something, you're not putting your money in it, right? What we've seen is a lot of people became very angry with the way the government went about it, and they decided to put their money in crypto. And when you have a situation like that, where you have a lot of fanatics who believe that the technology should be allowed to grow on its own without all that government attentions or interference, and then they become more like unhappy with the whole thing and they start investing more in crypto. Although it's still the financial market, but there's no regulation yet. We're not sure where the money goes and what it does to grow the economy, because a lot of those money goes into foreign territories, because a lot of these cryptocurrency companies are have their offices abroad, so a lot of that capital leave the country to other countries. When you think about it from a capital standpoint, you might want to wonder whether the government has an end game when it comes to capital formation mandate, in terms of not upsetting people, not driving investors away or capital money. The second thing is uh, maybe a part of the first one is alienation, in terms of the a lot of those project and cryptos, and we've seen this recently, they might decide to leave America and go to other countries, right? And if they do, you can see where this is going to lead to. So what we are seeing is, based on that alienation, you're going to have a lot of that money that's going to leave with these companies. We're talking about multi-billion dollar companies that are going to leave the country to go invest elsewhere. Those countries will receive those investment, and America will lose these investments. So the government might still look at it as, this is the cost of what we have to go through to get our ways. Well, I'm not here to judge, and that's fine if that's what the government wants to do. But they might want to consider the alienation of capital, especially businesses that have been involved in cryptos that just either do not want to be involved in the US or want to just leave the US altogether if they have already been established in the US. Then there is also the alternatives. The alternative is that if you're going to fight crypto, you have to be careful whether you're fighting the people that you want to protect, or you're fighting the people you think that are against the people you're trying to, those you think that are against the people you're trying to protect. Because if you want to really um, fight crypto, unless you provide an alternative to the market, meaning the market is ready to adopt the technology, they are excited about it, and they are all involved, and they want to get their piece of the pie, and you're killing it. Remember, these are people who invest money. Let's say somebody invested $100,000 of their retirement money into Bitcoin, for instance, and because of the government enforcement and all the different government interference, BTC goes down and it loses value. That's somebody that you are trying to protect who lost money because of you. So that money is going down, and you're not providing an alternative for that person. If you look at it from that perspective, the alternative could be something more like the government could come with a digital currency that provides people a certain way to still invest in that technology or be part of that situation, or a work frame that's clearer for people to do. It's not a work frame that goes and attack people in the crypto industry. So alternative would be a great way to maintain a certain balance, provide an alternative, meaning we are going after this, but we provide you that as options. Okay. Or we want to enforce this, but we provide that option for you to do, to maybe come in compliance. I have heard some areas where the government has provided a way for people to become compliant, and a lot of cryptos have followed those guidelines. For instance, the states have required license. New York has required a beat license as well. The exchanges followed suit, and they applied, and they got approved, and they did what they needed to do. Then the government asked for more. Now SEC comes in and want more stuff done, and then CFTC comes in and wants more stuff done, and sometimes they clash among themselves. Therefore, it becomes more like, huh? Which way do we go? Which one do we follow? We just did this. So there is also alternative, as far as, I will do this, but if you do that, I won't do it. I think that's something along that line that the government could offer. Okay, this is why I say thank you for listening to the presentation on how we test. This is one of those extras that I will create to help you understand the topic on a larger perspective. So I'll see you in class, and thank you for listening. Good night.